Hey everybody, chapter 15, delivery. This is the last chapter you'll need before your reading quiz on Tuesday. So here we go. First, delivery is very important, but it is scary for most people. So remember that as we go along here. You are not alone. A lot of people get scared, let's just say it point blank, get scared to get up in front of people and talk. It's very common. Delivery is one of the 5 canons of rhetoric. We talked about those in chapter 13. Those are, real quickly, the invention of your speech, identifying the topic, which you're all doing right now, hopefully have done. Next is arranging the order of your speech, how you're going to talk about it. Style, the words and phrases you use. The delivery, which we're talking about here. And then how much you're going to memorize of your speech, and we're going to talk about that as well. So good delivery helps with many aspects, okay? First, it keeps your audience's attention. It gives you some credibility. And it makes your speech more memorable and impactful to people, okay? Obviously, it's really important to engage with the audience when you're speaking, or all the work you've done, means nothing. And that takes us to the next point. If it's delivered poorly, and we're going to talk about what that means, it doesn't matter how much you've worked on it, how much you've researched, how much you've planned. If it's easy to forget, and it then becomes difficult for people to believe you, to trust you. So it's really important that you nail the delivery of your speech. Here are some forms of delivery. First, pronunciation. And we're going to go through these real quickly about what each of them means, okay? First, pronunciation is just that, how you pronounce the words. Do you pronounce them correctly? Or are you mispronouncing words? And none of these are going to totally kill your speech, but what they do is they just make it easier for the audience to engage, because then my mind doesn't wander, because I'm like, oh my God, he just mispronounced that word. Doesn't he know better? And then I'm out of it. So you want to keep people in it. You want to keep them engaged. You'll hear that word over and over again. Articulation. How well do you enunciate your words? All right? Or do you talk like, I don't really understand what you're saying? Very important. Your volume. Are you talking loud enough for me to hear, or you're not screaming at me? The latter is what, obviously, I need to work on. Your pitch, which the pitch is, it's sort of like, with music. How high or low your voice sounds when you speak, okay? Not loud or soft, but high or low. And your pitch is your pitch with your normal voice. Don't try to make it something it's not. Don't try to say, I'm going to talk in a certain way, and this is a speech, so I need to talk. No, be you. The best thing you have in giving your speech, the best tool you have is you. When we talk about rhythm, that just means, are you speaking in a way that, again, is going to engage people, or are you kind of just talking like this in a sing-song voice and going through everything? And again, I get lost in that because now I'm thinking about that, and why are you doing that versus what you're saying. Okay, your rate. How fast are you talking? Are you talking really fast? Or are you talking so slowly that I can't at all pay attention? All right? The tone you use. Do you sound angry about something? It's okay especially in these persuasive speeches, to sound angry. Do you sound angry? Do you sound bitter? Think of your tone. Do you sound empathetic? What's your tone like? Without being an actor, think about how that's coming across. And your vocalized pauses. Do not get hung up on this, please. We all have them. I have them. I say I say okay, to make sure you've sort of grasped it in my head. We do it. It's not ideal. Watch and make sure you don't do, again, a lot of them that are going to take people out of the speech out, out of what you're talking about and away from that. But newscasters do it, people do it, it's how we talk. That does not have to be perfect, but just make sure you're not overdoing it. Okay, here are some forms of delivery. First of all, the physical delivery includes just that, your physical appearance. How do you look? Did you not, pick something to wear that makes you look for a speech at all credible? Okay, are you wearing something, more suitable for lawn work than it is standing up in front of a group? Do you have good posture? Do you kind of command the room, right? Or does it seem like you're more like wallpaper, we call it, right? Where you kind of just like blend in with the surroundings. Do you have good facial expressions when you're talking? And again, that's gonna engage me because I know that you're interested. Do you use gestures? Do you just stand there, or do you sometimes not overuse them, but do you use a few gestures with your hands? Do you have eye contact with the audience? And we talked about this with most groups the other day. Your eye contact at the beginning of your speech, when you are going to get my attention, is the most important thing. You want to have that first sentence or two memorized. You do not want to be looking down at your cards right away because I'm already out of it and not listening and not engaged. Types of delivered speeches. First of all, there's the memorized one where the person has just memorized the whole thing. That's fine as long as it doesn't seem like it. You don't want it to seem like, for lack of a better comparison, I guess, a high school speech contest where you've gotten up and just memorized everything and it's just very, okay, I should have said a bad one, where it's very boring and it's not interesting. But that is one where you won't use any notes because you've memorized it word for word. A manuscript is, this one's the worst, I'm sorry, where the speaker writes out every word for an essay format and delivers by reading the manuscript. Don't do that. And don't just put your speech on your cards and try to fool us that you're only using your cards as kind of a crutch and a guide for you, which they should be, but every word of it's written out there and you're just reading it. Because my thought as an audience member is, why don't you just hand me the cards and let me read them myself instead of wasting my time reading to me? Extemporaneous means you've practiced it, you've polished it, you know your key points you want to hit, and you talk about those. Every time you give it, it's going to sound a little different. You won't be using the exact same words because you haven't memorized it. But the beauty in that is every time you give it, and every time you practice, you know what kind of works and what doesn't work. Oh, I think I'll put that in. That was a cool thought I had. Or, you know what? That's not feeling right. I don't think that's going to resonate with the audience. This is a good, it's a good way to practice. Impromptu means you're winging it. We've all done it. Sometimes it works. Most of the time, 95% of the time, it doesn't. Because I think it's because A, you don't know the material, and B, you're more worried about trying to remember or figure out the material while you're there than you are what you're talking about. And that can make for a really bad experience for everybody. So look at which one you think is the best. I think by the descriptions, you can kind of tell. I would focus on the extemporaneous. That's what we're talking about here. All right. Communication apprehension. Oh, we all have it. The fear or anxiety for real or anticipated communications. So just know, like we said, everyone suffers from this to some level, okay? There are two components that will impact your level of apprehension. The first is the innate, the amount of communication, and I think it should say anxiety, that we were born with and naturally have due to genetics. You can't help that. You're born with it a little bit. That's what the research has found. So we just have to work with that and know it. And to me, there's a little bit of comfort in that as well. And then there's also the contextual, which obviously means what context are you giving your speech in, okay? Are you in a big auditorium and that's going to make you a little more, nervous? Are you in a room of people who you know and that's going to make you nervous? Is it subject matter that you really don't understand and that's not going to help? So all of those things will play a part in how apprehensive and anxious you are. So obviously there's little you can do to change the trait, what we're born with, but we can work with it, and you can reduce your overall CA, communication apprehension, by working to reduce the state one, what context you're coming from, as we talked about. So here are some strategies to reduce the apprehension. First, practice your speech often. This is the most important bullet point here. Every time you do, you're going to get a little better, whether you think so or not, even if you're learning from one of your practice sessions where you've just bombed. If you go in practiced, your speech you're bound to just have us in the palm of your hand and make people think about something and maybe persuade them to do what it is you're calling them, their call to action you're giving them on your topic. It really, really makes a difference. And do not think, kind of like we mentioned earlier, I've got to go through and get all this information from my speech, my outline, I've got it all done, whatever, and I'll practice before I go on. No, the practicing of it is a huge, huge part. It's just as important as the words you're writing down to be in your speech. There are relaxation techniques if you get anxious that you can use. You can meditate ahead of time. You can do some stretching. You can focus. And we're going to tell you here on what helps with that. But employ some of these techniques, okay? Meditating is nothing more than sitting there with your eyes closed, picturing a picture of something that makes you feel happy and at peace. Staying on that picture, breathing in, breathing out, in through your nose, out through your mouth usually. In these days, if you don't have a mask on. And then every time you think about something other than your breath and that picture, you go back to that. You don't let other thoughts come in and stay in. They do come in, you think. So it's really a great way. Even doing it for a minute will make a lot of difference for you. And if you know any easy, simple stretching, like some simple yoga, not big, crazy poses, but just some simple stretching, that will help you too. And you can do all of that standing up too, if you need to. Systematic desensitization, we talked about that I think in class the other day, where this would be where you first practiced in front of the mirror maybe, and then with your dog, and then you practiced with a friend, and then maybe more people, and then you did it elsewhere. Okay, then you did it talk to a stranger. Little steps you can take that will get you from 0 to final product, and that will reduce your stress. And maybe it's only giving part of the speech to someone, and then you give a little more, and then you give a little more. You can do it. Visualize your success. The visioning part is something that a lot of successful people do in all areas. Okay? Think of yourself up there, commanding the room, engaging the audience. They're liking it. You're doing great. Imagine that. Okay? And how great that's going to feel at the end. This is an awesome technique. And this one is, for me, it's not as easy, but it actually works. Think of your speech as a conversation with one individual at a time. It's a little hard because if there's a room of people, but I think what's even stronger and related to this is, and to me, this is the number one, this is the mindset to be in. Do not think of how you're coming across to people. Think of what it is and the power in that and why you want to share that with them. When I'm in front of you guys, and I was nervous at first too. Don't think I wasn't. I was nervous. And if it showed, great. If it didn't, even better. But when I'm there talking to you, I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, I hope they like me. Oh my gosh, I hope they think this shirt looks okay. Oh my gosh, I hope that I don't mess up here. I hope that... No. Yes, we all get thoughts similar to that. But then we let them go. And we focus on what is the concept here I want you to get and why that's important. And let's focus on that and what I can do to engage you so that maybe you'll be interested in it and then remember it. I'm thinking more about that, much, much more than I am about what you're thinking of me, because that really does not matter. No offense, but it won't matter when you're giving a speech either. You won't care about what your audience is thinking of you, because that will, and not doing that is going to ease your anxiety tremendously. And then if you have any others, okay, come up with them yourself. There's no right or wrong answer as long as it works. All right, there are all types of presentation aids. Most of you will be using PowerPoint, Google Slides, and what these are things that you use to supplement what you're talking about and to keep the audience moving along with you. And when you're using a PowerPoint, it also helps you because just like I'm doing here, it tells you what's next, okay? But the thing is, your PowerPoint, okay, as it says here, are physical items you are discussing in your speech. It should not be so much that, like, it should not be like these, with all the information is on it that you're trying to teach someone. It should just be main points as a guide to keep the audience involved. Because if you put too much on here, what's going to happen is you're going to either, and neither of these are good, you're either going to be reading the PowerPoint, which is a total no-no, because then you might as well just give them the PowerPoint. It's pointless for you to even be there. Or B, you're going to be competing with your PowerPoint. You're going to be talking about something, you're going to have all these words on the screen, and I don't know where to look. I don't know whether to listen to you, or I don't know whether to watch the PowerPoint, and so I'm trying to do both at the same time, or wonder which I should do, and now I'm not listening to a word you're saying. I'm out of it. You have not engaged me. You can also use, along with that, with the PowerPoint, you could use scaled physical representation of things utilized as a presentation. In other words, they use the example in the textbook of a optometrist who comes in and he wants to, show you, talk about the eyeball. And so what he does is he has a much bigger eyeball for you on a desk that he can point to, and it's a bigger version of it. Or if you wanted to talk about, you wanted to have a miniature representation of a house, you were talking about a house, you'd have a smaller one. So in other words, they're either bigger or smaller of what you want to talk about. You also can do a demonstration if you're trying to teach your audience something. You could, if for this, it's like you wanted to persuade somebody to, let's say, recycle. I know that one of you has that, at least one of you. Okay, great. So maybe we're going to demonstrate, here's how to do that. Here are the different items, right? And here's how you decide which can be recycled and which can't. That would work well for that. All right. Here are all different kinds of presentation aids, and I'm not going to go through each of these, but they're in the book, and we also have a picture of them here of all the different kinds. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Look at these one by one and see if that's something that you think your audience could get behind. Could they be interested in that if I'm going through and talking about a graph of how things have changed over time? Would they be interested in this, or is this too much, right? Keep them simple. Keep your graphs and charts simple for people to read and to take in. All right, so this PowerPoint is awesome. It's hilarious. It's a comic who gears his talks to corporate types of people. So the audience loves him because they all can totally relate to this. And it's problems with PowerPoints, and he is spot on. So watch that. We talked about most of these. And you could also use clips like this too to go into your speech, as long as it doesn't take up too much time, and practice that. Having it in there. Don't just think it's going to magically happen smoothly when you get up there. Be sure you practice with that. We talked about the distraction and not to put too much on your slides, and that's really important. We've mentioned this too. Practice, practice, practice. Here are some ways you can do that. You can do it in front of a mirror. That works great. You can do it, like we mentioned, in front of a small group of friends or family. That works. And if you want to do little chunks of your speech so you get less anxious, maybe you just want to run the open in front of somebody and see how that feels. And then next time you want to do the open in one of your points, you can do it like that, okay? And I know you might be thinking, well, I'm not made of time, but right now a lot of us, we do have more time than normal. So as bad as this sounds, I guess maybe that's one silver lining here, is that can work in your favor for this particular assignment. And record yourself and watch it. This one's a little dicey. Be sure if you do that you're not going to get caught up in like, oh my God, is that what my voice sounds like? Oh my God, is that what I look like? So use that one cautiously. Strategies for practicing. You want to time yourself. That's important from the get-go so that you know that it's between 6 and 7 minutes. Okay? Don't think that, oh my gosh, I want to show how much I really know. If it's 15 minutes, that's fine. It's not. Some of you might have a lot of information, and it's just as important trying to figure out what you don't want in your speech as it is what you do want. Okay? Practice with your visual aids like we mentioned. And then ask the audience what they thought, as painful as it might be. Take their constructive criticism. I know it's hard when it's family and close friends sometimes, but take that. Some of it take with a grain. Some of it take it to heart. Okay, and you can do practice with people on Zoom too. They don't have to be right in front of you. So that, I think, kind of broadens out the people that you're going to be able to practice in front of. And use your delivery to encourage dialogue. You want to check the pronunciations before speaking. You want to engage your audience. We talked about that. You want to practice. You want to choose presentation aids that will increase the understanding, and you want to choose interesting vocal delivery methods. How you say it. We talked about that. So going back to this, here are the 2 things you want from your speech. It's kind of inferred here, but it is from this list: interest and enthusiasm. Those are the things you want to give to your audience. You want to seem interested and enthusiastic. And if you can if you can bring both of those, home run. Here are a couple of speeches you might watch to see what you think of them. These might come up too in one of your assignments. So if you don't want to watch these now, that's fine. But it might be helpful to see what people did and how actually persuasive they are. And again, remember, Your speech needs to have a call to action. A call to action. Please let us know if you have any questions. And like I said, this is the fun part. So do have fun with it. Don't be afraid of it. And knock 'em dead, as they say. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And talk to you soon. Cheers.